in the room. Did you know the term that he used for / Brendan, what did you call it? Whack. Is that a technical thing? It's a Microsoft thing? Okay. Whack. Oh, it's an official geek term? Geek term. There you go. You all took one geek notch thumb up this morning. Oh, whack. Whack. So OkCupid analyzed which of its members, is it the picture with somebody with, low-cut cleavage? Did they get more contacts? Was it the, person with their dog? And it was, phenomenal output. But clearly, now that we know that people are being assessed and may get a job because they've got a slick, savvy-looking Facebook or other social networking profile, there's clearly a business here to be made, consulting and making sure people are in order. Okay, let me introduce to you our panelists for a little bit of a discussion over here. Many of you already know Marcely Hancock, the president of I Keep Safe. She speaks around the world on digital citizenship issues. Steve Balcom and the leadership folks at FOSI gave her their award last year for outstanding achievement. So she's been on just about every important child safety task force, from the Berkman Internet Safety one to many of the others. Jim Harper, anybody who's been in the policy world in Washington knows for quite a long time. Jim, director of Info Policy Studies at the Cato Institute, and a effective writer, blogger, speaker, and advocate. And so looking forward to hearing his take. He's got a unique perspective on some of these things. And Brendan, are you going to be part of our discussion here too? Okay, we'll bring it back. From the Peanut Gallery, great. And then at my far right, Nat Wood, who we're delighted could join us. Nat is the only person at the FTC other than Yael who's not in San Francisco today. So is anybody back at the office now?
Rich Gold is here too.
Oh, we got a couple. Is anybody back at the home office in case there's any terrible nothing? Great. All right. This is a critical. This is a critical occasion.
They're all working on credit issues.
They're all working on credit issues. Nat is the assistant director for consumer and business education at the FTC. Led the team that created NetCetra, chatting with kids about being online, which actually is pretty good. It was an awful lot of fun. I thought it would be one of these sort of dull government speaky kind of thing, but they actually really did a very creative and engaging job. And so, yeah, if you haven't messed around with it, please do. Well, so what we heard, I guess, was dog bites man, right? We all knew, sort of, that we've been telling people that, oh, my God, worry about what's online because it could affect you when you try to get a job, when you grow up. But I don't think I've ever sort of seen documentation or actually a study that actually says, yeah, it's true, and not only is it true, it's become ingrained in the actual interview, job, official approval process. Was anybody surprised by that, or what's your take, Jim? What do you think?
Well, I don't think it's much of a surprise. The percentage of HR professionals who look for this stuff is on the high side from what I anticipated it would be. And a question that comes up in looking at the data for me is to, through this, then gauge how many people would be affected by this thing, because I don't know how many people are hired through HR professionals or through recruiters, and that might this result might skew the numbers as to how much it impacts actual people. I've never been hired by a recruiter. Whenever I hear from recruiters, they're actually looking for someone I might know, which is always kind of disappointing. But it's not a surprise, and it's, if nothing else, it's a signal of where we're going in terms of data we share. One of the things that I think it's important to emphasize that might be helpful for all of you, there's little I can do to help all of you, because as Jules said, asking you to talk amongst yourselves might get you more quality in conversation than you're going to hear from me. But this is definitely about the fairness part of the privacy values. Privacy is a lot of different things, and that's why it's such a struggle for a lot of people to work on, including control of information, fairness, seclusion, personal security, and liberty. And most often we talk about control, I think that's maybe sort of the heart of privacy, is controlling information about yourself. But once information is made available either by you or collected by others, the fairness question is what happens with data. Is the data appropriate? Is the decision rule appropriate? And that kind of question. And that's where we're really at in terms of hiring decisions. So I think it's an important illustration of all the different dimensions of privacy that we have to think about.
Marcella, you speak to kid audiences often, and I imagine you warn them that if they don't do this or they don't do that, it'll be online and then they won't get a job. Do they take it seriously, and would the statistics convince them that this is more serious than not? What's your reaction?
Well, I think it's important when you're working with children and youth to recognize that teens are connected emotionally with their friends through technology in a way that those of us who are adults use technology as a tool. They use it as an emotional connection. So they communicate in different ways and about different types of topics. So Sonia Livingston in the UK and through the EU did a huge study about children. And she listed the most prevalent risk was around privacy. It was around the personal information. So that impact of what children are sharing in their social and personal lives and how that can come back later, the rest of their life, literally, because there's no way to scrub something off the internet. I'm always amazed when I talk to teens and you talk to them and you let them know actually everything can be tracked and stored, and things that you've deleted, if it's been cached in someone else's machine, it still can, come back up again. And they go, no, I have my privacy settings on my social networking side. I said, privacy settings gives you a couple of nice little options, but it's not encrypted. It's not like your bank records. And literally, it's very hard to help them recognize the potential impact. We noticed about 18 months ago that there was just almost a flat line in education around the online reputation, its impact for academic and employment opportunities. So we reached out to the American School Counselors Association for two reasons. What kids post also puts them at risk. So when you look at the kids who are posting about sexual activity, about sexual questions, they are just like a little target to be abused, or they make themselves very vulnerable by what they post. So we had two concerns. One was to be able to identify those kids who are at risk by what they post, and those who are at risk with financial and academic opportunities by what they post. So the American School Counselors Association, when you talk to counselors at school, they say, it's about your GPA, it's your test scores, it's your community service, and your letters of recommendation. And then they quit. And so by working with the American School Counselors Association, we've created content with a couple of sponsors, and we work quite a bit with Reputation Defender, helping counselors to talk to their students about this message. And I gave a training session at Marymount University just a little bit ago, and the bulk of the teachers, the professionals, they were just doing their masters in counseling, and so many of them were very young, and they were absolutely floored by this content. They absolutely had never considered that what they had shared about their own spring break experience would actually show up at a job interview. They had not considered it. The older ones were a little bit, just a little bit more savvy around the thinking in this space, but it's a big challenge.
Is it conceivable that we're going to scare teens into being responsible adults because they're teens and they do silly and stupid things? And is it conceivable that applying for a job, which is, wow, that's down the line, stops them from posting the fun pics from a party? Is there something we need to do to protect them from themselves because they're making lifelong decisions? Is it conceivable that we can be that paternalistic or? Well,
we know already that scare tactics don't work. When you show a teen a picture of a burnt lung, it doesn't stop them from smoking. And it doesn't work for adults either. So the goal is not to scare them with this research. The goal is to take this message that you can create an online reputation that is an asset rather than a liability. And what can you do, and what can you do with your friends to raise the overall reputation? And that is a message I've seen. Once you stop talking about the potential harm and you start talking to them about what can you do and how can you create a reputation that's an asset, they start listening.
Well, Nat, you're an education expert. You've created education materials at the FTC. What's your take with waving the research around, to go back to the DoubleClick days, Newell, I think you were there at the time. One of the effective things, we were worried about antitrust in those days. DoubleClick had a big chunk of the market, and there was antitrust training for the executive. Don't say this, don't say this, don't say I'm going to crush my opponent. And, okay, fine, we did our training. They had somebody come in and go through all the emails on the central server and just look for key phrases. And then, without grabbing anyone's names, say, look, here's what you may have meant, but here's what counsel, here's what the opponents, here's what the FTC, here's what someone litigating this is going to get. And you explain why when you said, well, crush them, you meant, at the basketball game afterwards and not, what you said, because there it is. Is somehow displaying these profiles back? Should we